Is it Haynes or Hayes? Does anyone know?
No N to the best of my knowledge.
Hayes?
No end, no.
All right, good afternoon, sir. If you would please make your way to the witness stand, which is on my right. Upper riser. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand. My clerk, Teresa, who's across from you, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. The first thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Jason, Jason, Hayes, Hayes.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Your witness.
Just 1 second. I accept for value and return for value this document for the record. Good afternoon, Mr. Hayes. Is that how you pronounce Hayes?
Yep.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a retail sales associate for a food broker, Damon Worldwide.
Been doing that for a long time?
21 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. The evening of November 21st, 2021. You recall that evening pretty well?
Fairly well, yes.
What were you doing that evening?
Went to the parade.
Did you go to the parade with family, friends?
I went there with my daughter.
Do you recall what time you arrived?
30 minutes before the parade started.
Were you scheduled to do any marching in the parade itself,
No.
or just spectating?
Yes.
Just for the record, did you say yes to being a spectator?
Yes.
Thank
That's
you.
what I thought he said.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure there was.
Yeah, he answered. Anything unusual catch your eye that day that you recall?
Yes.
And what did you see?
Besides the parade,
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was unusual that caught your eye that evening.
well, where we were, yes, a red truck came through where we were. It honked and swerved.
I guess I want to back up a little bit. Where were you positioned at that
We
time?
were all the way at the beginning of the parade.
Okay.
Like, it was Main and a corner of Main and White Rock.
Okay. And you said you observed this vehicle honked and swerved?
Yes.
What did it swerve from?
I'm sorry.
What did it swerve from?
Where?
Or was it, I guess the correct question would be, why did it swerve?
I don't know. I wasn't driving. I don't know what his intentions were.
And you stated that the vehicle honked. Was that just a single honk, or was it a beep beep, or
One honk.
do you recall stating that it honked several times?
I don't
And
recall.
when you were initially.
I don't recall.
So well, before we get to that, Did you see where the vehicle went after it honked and swerved?
Yes, it kept on going straight down Main, east, the same route the parade went.
Did you get a description of who was driving the vehicle you saw that
I
day?
did not.
Did you get a license plate?
I did not.
Do you recall if the vehicle had any tinted windows?
No.
And I'm assuming at some point you either were interviewed by law enforcement or seek to be interviewed by law enforcement.
I did, by a detective.
And do you recall if that was the same evening or?
It was not the same evening.
So
It was a couple days after.
Okay. Do you recall in that interview that you had with the detective stating that your kids were playing in the roadway and the operator of the vehicle honked the horn several times and veered to the left around the kids?
Yes.
So in your opinion, it wasn't trying to strike the kids?
Correct, yes.
And after it continued, I think you said east?
Yep.
Would that be correct? East?
Yep.
Did you see the vehicle strike anyone?
I did not, no.
Do you recall what side of the street the vehicle was traveling on at that
It
time?
was on the right side.
On the right side.
So we were on the north side of the road.
Okay. So the right side would be.
Yep.
Okay. Did you see the vehicle stay on the north side of the road for the duration of the time that you observed it?
Yes.
So you never saw it go to the other side of. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any
No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any cross?
Yes, just briefly. Good afternoon, Mr. Hayes.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your attendance, sir. Mr. Hayes, do you remember seeing a police officer at this intersection as well?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you remember writing in your report or telling the police officer that a police officer chased the vehicle on foot?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. It's cross. You may answer.
I do remember that I thought I saw a police chasing after the car on foot.
Okay. And do you remember also telling the same officer that the SUV took off down the street and that it accelerated?
Yes.
Objection.
Is that
Hold on. There's been an objection.
I guess the objection to be what officer is being referred to wasn't clear.
Overruled. The state may continue asking the question.
I guess I was asking, was that referring to the interview officer?
Your objection is noted. It's overruled. The state may ask the question fully.
Is that your recollection, sir, that the vehicle sped off and accelerated away?
Yes.
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Do you also recall telling the officer who interviewed you that the driver of the vehicle had a dark complexion and a beard?
Yes.
Is that accurate with your recollection of the driver?
Yes.
But you didn't see a face, you couldn't
No.
identify anybody
leading.
beyond those descriptions,
Hold on.
correct?
Hold on. There's been an objection to leading. It's overruled. The witness may answer.
No.
All right, thank you, sir. Those were all my questions.
Thank you. Any redirect, sir?
Briefly, very briefly, you made a reference to the the driver of the vehicle having dark complexion, a dark complexion? What would you consider a dark complexion?
A dark complexion. I don't know.
It is kind of hard. Did you notice any clothing?
I did
on
not
the driver?
know.
Did you notice any hair?
No.
No further questions?
All right, thank you. You may step down. And you are excused. The defense may call its next witness, please.
Quick question before I do: who's supposed to be arriving at 3:30? Just so I know.
I'm not sure.
Babietz and Urel will be here at 3:30. Mr. Liscano is here now, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I knew it was here now. Just trying to get clarity.
Are you going to call Mr. Liscano?
It would appear so. He's the one that's here.
All right, then he may. The defense is calling Abel Liscano, correct?
The defense is calling Abel Liscano.
All right, very well. We'll have him brought in. Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. If you would please make your way to the witness stand. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand. And my clerk Teresa, who will be across from you or is across from you, will swear you in. Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. First thing I will have you do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Abel Liscano, Abel-Lazcano.
Thank you. Your witness, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Liscano. What do you do for a living currently?
I'm a hairdresser.
No judgment whatsoever on this question. Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes, I have.
And how many times?
7.
Do you recall the night of November 21st, 2021 pretty well? I know it's been a minute, but
Best as I can, yeah.
what were you doing that evening, if you recall?
The Christmas parade?
Were you marching in the parade? Or,
No, I was watching it.
who were you there with? Family, friends?
My wife and my daughter.
Do you recall where you were positioned to watch the parade?
I was standing in front of the Corey Insurance on Main Street.
Okay. Is that part of Main Street close to like a side street? If you recall.
It's not too far from Maple.
Do you recall the side streets being barricaded during the parade?
I don't remember.
Do you recall what time you arrived at the parade that evening?
It had just started, so whatever time that was at.
Okay. You recall something other than the parade catching your attention that day?
People getting hurt, yeah.
And what did you see that day, if you recall?
I saw a red SUV plow over a bunch of people.
And did you see the driver of this SUV you're referring to?
Yeah, you're standing right there.
And how many people did you see in the vehicle?
Just one, the driver.
So, do you recall flagging down a law enforcement vehicle that evening?
Yeah, I do.
And do you recall what you told the officer that evening?
Not very well.
I'm gonna attempt to see if anything brings back some recollection. First, do you recall the name of the officer you flagged down that evening?
Officer Moss.
Do you recall telling Officer Moss that you observed 3 or 4 people in the SUV as it passed you?
I don't remember that.
So, to your recollection, the SUV that you saw, did it have tinted windows?
I don't remember.
And do you remember what the description was that evening that you gave to law enforcement?
I told him it was a red SUV.
The description of the driver, do you remember that?
I know he was a black male.
Is that all you recall about your description?
That's all I remember.
After seeing this vehicle, what did you do?
We left. I got my family out of there.
And where did you go?
We headed back to the car.
Do you recall where your vehicle was parked?
I believe it's the Lindholm or what building on Maple Street.
And did you see the vehicle stop on Maple Street?
Which vehicle?
The SUV that you claim you saw.
Oh, no, I didn't see it stop, no. It kept going through the parade.
And speaking with, is it Detective Moss? Well, speaking with law enforcement that evening, do you recall advising law enforcement that you observed 3 black subjects running from the vehicle?
No, I don't remember that.
If it pleases the court, I would like to show the witness this. I'm referring to page 4 exactly.
Is it a statement this witness personally wrote?
I believe it's what, I don't think he wrote it himself.
So it's a summary written by another person.
by I don't know if it's Officer Moss or Detective Moss. I'm not sure if what his rank is.
Continue with your questions. I'm going to deny the request that you show the exhibit or the paperwork to the witness.
Do you recall making the statements to Detective Moss that you observed one where it says one was described as running southbound on Maple towards College Avenue? Do you recall that?
No, I don't.
Do you recall stating that the other two were described as running in a westerly direction from the rear of 338 Maple Street?
No.
Do you recall stating that one black subject was described as tall, wearing a blue top and blue and black pants, while the other subjects were described as two short black males wearing sweatpants?
Barely, a little bit of that.
So, which of these subjects do you minimally recall wearing those items that evening?
No, you asked me if I remember people running, and I said no. I remember describing those people to him. I remember.
So where did you observe those?
Standing by the vehicle, where I found the vehicle, where I spotted it.
Just so we have clarity, describe the subjects you saw that evening standing by the vehicle.
I don't remember that good. I mean, you were describing them, so it brought back a little bit, but I can't tell you. That was too long ago.
And how did you come upon the vehicle at the address of 338 Maple Street that evening?
I was walking my family back to the car. Trying to get them to safety. So I was keeping an eye out and I spotted it.
Do you recall stating that you saw the SUV reverse into a driveway?
No.
Do you recall why that would be reported?
No. When I found it, it was parked already.
Do you recall when you initially had the interaction with Detective Moss? Do you recall leading him to where the vehicle was ultimately found?
Yeah.
Do you recall yelling at subjects standing outside of a building where, or near where the vehicle was that evening?
I remember asking them. I don't remember yelling at them.
Do you recall why? Do you recall why the report says that you advised Detective Moss that there are 3 black subjects, specifically black subjects, running from the vehicle?
No, I don't remember.
Were you yourself injured in this incident that evening?
No.
Do you recall stating that, well, let me back up for a minute. Did you speak with another detective that evening, if you recall?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall if that was Detective Coates?
I don't remember his name.
So it'd be fair to say that you spoke with 2 different law enforcement officers that evening.
Yeah.
Do you recall in your interview with Detective Coates, in reference to the vehicle that you saw that evening, do you recall telling Detective Coates that it appeared there were 3 or 4 people in the Ford Escape as it passed you?
No, I don't remember that.
Do you recall in your interview with Detective Coates that evening stating that you could not provide any description of the occupants other than that they appeared to be African American?
Yeah, I remember saying that.
So it'd be fair to say that you observed African Americans in this vehicle that you saw, correct?
The reason why I came up with 3 or 4 people was because when I was walking by and I saw the car, there was 2 or 3 black males standing by the vehicle, and there was at least 3 or 4 more on the porch. So I figured they were by the vehicle. It must have been the ones trying to hide the vehicle because they were standing in front of it or real close to it.
In your opinion, did it look like they were nervous or attempting to hide?
Well, everybody was running past them and walking really fast, and they were just standing around there. They were the only ones not doing much. So yeah, they stood out.
Now, this is the question actually was in reference to when you spoke with Detective Coates that evening, in reference to seeing the vehicle in the parade as it passed you. Do you recall at that point, while at the parade that evening, do you recall stating to Detective Coates that it appeared that there were 3 or 4 people in the Ford Escape as it passed you during the parade that evening?
No, I don't remember that.
Any reason why the Detective Coates would report that that's what you stated to him?
Like I said before, I saw two or three people by the vehicle, so I assumed they were with the vehicle. So they must have been in the vehicle during the parade. I saw the driver going by because he hit somebody right in front of us.
Do you recall in your interview with Detective Coates that evening stating that the three individuals, and I'm referring to who you saw next to the vehicle, so it's clarification. The three individuals who were standing in a line, shoulder to shoulder, as African American males?
Yeah.
So it's fair to say that's what you observed that evening?
I saw at least two of them. And it looked like they were standing in front of it.
And during that interview with Detective Coates that evening, do you recall stating to Detective Coates that you may be able to recognize the older male? So I'm assuming one of the individuals that you saw standing shoulder to shoulder was a older male?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Any reason why multiple, well, I'm not going to say multiple, two. Any reason why the two detectives that you spoke with that night both reported that you stated you saw three black subjects running from the vehicle?
No.
And during the parade incident, were you or anyone you were with injured that evening?
No.
No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Lascano.
Good afternoon.
Sir, you said you watched the parade near Curry Insurance, is that correct?
Yeah, right in front.
Okay. Do you remember, you said you saw the SUV strike some people in the parade?
Yeah.
Yes? Do you remember what group of people in the parade? Can you remember anything about the name or the banner or the costumes or anything like that?
Objection leading.
Overrule. It's cross.
No, I don't.
Speculative. Objection.
Overrule. The witness may answer. I believe he said no. His answer may
Yeah,
stand.
no, I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember seeing the SUV strike more than one person?
Yeah.
Objection. Speculative.
Overrule.
About how many people did you see the SUV strike, sir?
Objection. Speculative.
Overrule.
It was crowds. I mean, when it was coming through, because I was standing over my daughter and my wife, they were sitting on the curb. I saw it coming through, and at first it looked like it was just pushing people out of the way, and then it just kept swerving back, and it was just plowing everybody out of the way until it got to in front of us. Then it actually hit somebody, and it just did like a cartwheel in the air.
You remember that?
Yeah, it was right in front of us.
Okay.
And while the witness was giving the answer, not just not the last answer, but the one prior to that. He had his right hand in the air, directioning his hand from right to left, describing the vehicle coming from right to left. And then when he said he saw someone go into the air, he was like twirling his fingers as if to say it kind of tumbled in the air. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Mr. Lescano, I want to talk about the moment when you located this vehicle on Maple, okay? I'm going to ask, Madam Clerk, could you please turn on the AV system? We're going to put up State's Exhibit 65.
Go ahead.
Objection to the relevancy of Exhibit 65.
Noted, overruled. It's been received. The state may proceed.
All right, this total clip is 36 seconds, but before we begin to play it, sir, do you recognize the area on the screen that's shown in this picture?
Yeah, I believe that's Central Middle School,
Where?
right at where the stairs is.
Okay, the red brick on the left side of the picture?
Yeah.
Objection
Okay.
speculative.
Overruled. His answer may stand, he said, I believe.
And would you agree with me, the house where the SUV was found was up in this area here where I just put the green dot on the screen?
Yeah.
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
That looks right, correct, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
All right, we're gonna clear the screen, please, and we're gonna play this entire clip for 36 seconds. Please watch and see if you see yourself or any of your family members in this clip.
Objection to the relevancy of this video to this particular witness.
Overruled. You may play the clip.
Overruled on what grounds, Your Honor? Is that attacking agreement?
Sir, did you see yourself or your family in that clip?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
No, I did not.
Okay. Now you said you did see, by the time you walked past the car, you saw 2 or 3 black males standing near the car, right?
Objection mischaracterization of this. He said 3. Specifically said the number.
Overruled.
And you also said you saw 2 or 3 what you thought to be black males on the porch of the residence there, correct?
Objection stated it was black males. Asked and answered.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
No.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, there was 2 or 3 standing by the vehicle,
Okay.
and then on the porch there was maybe 3 or 4 or more people. I don't know if they were. I'm sure they were white, but
Okay.
I was trying to not make it obvious because at the time, I believed that they were with the vehicle, so I didn't want them to see that I saw them. So I just did what I
Understood.
thought was right at the time.
Sure. Do you happen to know the people that live at this house?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
No, I did not.
Would it be reasonable, do you think, Mr. Lescano, that people living in the house heard the crash and came outside and that's who you saw standing there by the vehicle?
Objection. There was never any crash mentioned.
I'll sustain. It calls for speculation.
Mr. Lescano, is it possible that the people you saw standing near the vehicle were in fact just neighbors that saw the vehicle the same way you did?
Yeah.
You described that at the time you went by on Maple Street, there was a lot of people running around in the area. Is that correct?
Objection mischaracterization of testimony.
Overruled.
Yes, there was.
And these are people hurrying away from the parade with their families, trying to get to safety just like you were, correct?
Objection speculative.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
You didn't see anything like that in State's Exhibit 65, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. You said on direct examination that you saw the driver of the SUV in the parade. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And you see that driver present in this courtroom here today, please?
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
Yes, he's sitting right over there.
Are you sure about that, sir?
Yes.
Objection speculative.
Overruled.
You said
And it
that.
mischaracterizes the testimony because that was not testified to before on direct.
Oh, your objections are overruled. I believe the witness already answered. Go ahead.
Did you happen to notice in Exhibit 65 the red SUV in that video clip that you watched?
No.
You didn't see it at
Couldn't
all,
see
did
it,
you?
no.
Okay, just wondered. Mr. Liscano, have you and I ever spoken about this case, sir?
No.
What about Attorney Basie here to my right? You and her ever talk about this case or your testimony?
Objection hearsay.
Overruled.
No.
Mr. Witchow on the end, did you ever talk to him about
Objection.
your testimony, sir?
Objection hearsay.
Overruled.
No.
All right, thank you, sir. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yep.
Go ahead.
You stated that you saw the driver, correct? Of the
Yeah.
SUV that you saw that day, correct?
Yes.
And how did the driver look that day you saw him?
He had a scruffy beard and he was a black male.
Did you see what the driver was wearing?
No, I don't remember that.
Did you see if the driver had any hair?
I don't remember that either.
Did you see if the driver had anything noticeable about their appearance? Tattoos, scars, marks, anything like that?
No. I saw the side, the profile, the side. You were flying fast down that street. I wasn't paying attention to the colored clothes you were wearing. I knew it was a black male and had a scruffy beard. It's the first thing I told my wife, is he was a black guy driving.
And do you recall how long you were able to get a side view, as you called it, of the alleged driver?
Well, it had to be a couple seconds.
And in a couple seconds' time, you were able to make out the driver's profile and race just by a couple seconds.
Yeah. It's not hard. You can tell if you were white or if you were black and if you had a beard or not. That's it. I don't know what color shirt you had on. If you had hair, a hat on backwards.
So that leads back to the question of, is that the only person you saw in the vehicle?
From what I remember, yes. I saw the driver. Like I said before, the reason why I thought there was 3 or 4 because I saw 3 or 4 people around the vehicle when I spotted it.
So would it be
That's
fair,
the only reason.
would it be fair to say that when you spoke with 2 different detectives that evening, the evening of the parade, both of those officers reported that you stated there were 3 or 4 people in the SUV as it passed you? Is that fair to say?
Oh, wait, can you repeat that again?
Just for clarification, you already stated previously in testimony that you spoke with 2 different detectives that evening, correct?
Yes, I did.
And both detectives that you spoke with that evening, the evening of November 21st, 2021, you stated to both of those law enforcement officers, detectives, that you observed 3 or 4 people in the SUV?
Like I said before, the reason why I said there must have been 3 or 4 was because they were standing by a vehicle. So I assumed that they were with the vehicle. I don't remember seeing them in the vehicle when you were hitting the people.
You stated this to both detectives, 2 different detectives, the evening of November 21st, 2021. And this was in relation to what you saw from the vehicle at the parade, not where the vehicle was later found. Any reason why you stated to both detectives in relation to what you saw at the parade, why both detectives in their reports stated that you told them that you observed 3 or 4 people in the SUV at the time of the parade?
So what's your question?
The question is, why did you report that to 2 different detectives on the same evening?
Like I told you before, when I walked past the vehicle, I spotted more than one individual standing in front of the vehicle. So I assumed they were with the vehicle. That's why I said they were inside.
I'm sorry.
That's why I said they were in the vehicle. I said there had to be at least 3 of them in the vehicle. That's the only reason I said that.
So why would you report that you saw this during the parade?
I don't know.
And during both interviews with detectives that evening, the evening of November 21st, 2021, you also stated to both detectives that you observed 3 or 4 black or African American is the word used. 3 or 4 African Americans running from the vehicle. Any reason why both detectives reported that you said that?
No, I don't remember.
No further questions.
Thank you, sir. You may step down. Do we have additional witnesses here?
Yes, Your Honor, they're ready.
All right, would that be how many people?
There's 2 left.
Okay, so the 2 left on your list, your next witness, sir.
So I'm guessing that's, oh, I know who it is. Just give me 1 quick second, Your Honor, 1 quick second.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that, Your Honor. I'm just making sure I have the correct paperwork.
My jurors need to stand. Go ahead.
I'm ready, Your Honor.
Go ahead, call your next witness.
Kathleen Urel?
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 That's how I think it is. We'll find out. All right, ma'am, if you would please make your way to the witness stand. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand, and my clerk, Teresa, who's on my left, will swear you in. Go ahead and come all the way up. Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat. First thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and then spell each.
Kathleen, K-A-T-H-L-E-E-N. Last name Urel, Y-O-U-R-E-L-L.
Thank you so much. Your witness, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Miss Urel. Is it Urel?
Urel.
Urel. What do you do for a living?
I'm in workforce management for a call center.
November 21st, 2021. Directing your attention there. You recall that evening pretty well?
Off and on, sir.
That's fair. It has been a while. Do you recall what you were doing that evening?
Yes, sir.
And what were you doing that evening?
At what time?
Around 3:30, 4 o'clock-ish.
I was dropping off my children who were participating in the parade.
And did you yourself stay for the parade?
Partial parade, yes.
Partial meaning maybe a few minutes.
Until my group of children went by.
Okay. Do you recall where you were positioned during watching your group participate in the parade?
Yes, on north and east, right on the corner there.
North and east.
If you're going parade route, it would be on the right-hand side.
Just so we have clarification, can we pull up the exhibit? I believe it's 15. We can. Thank you.
Go ahead. And thank you.
Can we show it to the witness first?
He doesn't want it published, so just to the witness for now.
Just not yet. Just I want to make sure the witness gets a chance to view it first. Can you see that on your screen yet?
I do.
And using the touch screen, it's a touch screen. Can you point out where
It's not published. So do you want it published?
I'm sorry. Yeah, publish.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to point that
So
out.
just so I know, to use the touch, it has to be published.
No, she could use it, but if you're going to have her do it, it should be done in front of the jury.
Fair.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we gotta wait on the jury, right?
Thank you.
For the jury, and can you, using the touch screen on your screen, can you point out exactly where you were positioned?
When I was watching it,
Yes, when you were watching it.
right on the corner. Sorry. Oh, well, if you want to
Can you
reverse
clear?
it
Can you
again,
clear
I'll do it
the
again.
arrow?
We'll clear it. You can do it again.
Yeah.
If you don't want, do you want the arrow?
Well, it was to the...
Clear it again.
Okay.
So it's a touch screen, so use your index finger and you can draw a circle.
Okay.
I was gonna
Can you
say
clear
that.
that?
Well, I mean, it was right there, but...
I was gonna say a circle or a little dot if.
Well, I thought I was doing that, but...
Yeah.
Oh.
Hold on.
Heavy
We'll do it
hands.
again. So press and hold while you draw.
Okay.
There you go.
And you said that would be approximately East Main and Northeast?
Correct.
And do you recall if those, well, there's side streets right there that you can see, is that fair to say?
Correct.
And those side streets would be Northeast and Buckley, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall if there were barricades at those?
I can't honestly recall. I can't be sure.
We could take Exhibit 15 down.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And you said you stayed at the parade until your group had passed.
Correct.
And what time did you leave?
I can't determine the time. It was right after my group of kids went by.
And where'd you go from there?
I walked down, well, I went to go get the car because I had to go pick them up at the end of the parade.
And I'm assuming at some point your attention got drawn to something happening. That'd be fair to say?
Not necessarily.
What do you remember when you went to go get the vehicle to pick up members of your group? Would that be fair to say first? I don't want to assume.
Yeah.
Do you recall anything happening at that point?
A situation did occur before the said big event that took place.
What do you recall happening at that time once you were on your way to get your vehicle?
I think I need more specifics from you to give the details you may be looking for.
While you were getting your vehicle, did you observe anything happening? Did you overhear about anything happening at that point?
Nothing of that nature. Well, all I can say is that I was walking past White Rock.
Did you see anything that may have alerted your attention at that time?
Yes, a car coming through the parade at the beginning on White Rock where the parade was starting. So when I left, I walked down Main to White Rock on the corner there. Then a gentleman, a child, who I don't know who they were, and myself walked across the street. And at this time, a car was beeping and weaving around a slight curve that White Rock has, and then continued on.
Did you see Did you see where the car went at that point?
Yes, I did. As it came around the slight curve White Rock has, it started to move forward, and then it went straight across when I was thinking it was going to leave the parade route. If you leave the parade route on Main, you're leaving. Sorry, if you turn left, you're leaving the parade route. If you're turning right, you're going right into the parade. And it went right to if you're looking at the parade, it was on the right-hand side. And it's continued on into the parade.
Hold on, just for the record, she was using her hands during her testimony. I just need,
Left
that's
it.
okay. I just need to make a
Yeah.
record of it. Usually her right hand just kind of demonstrating the course of travel that she described, the vehicle. And I think that's probably all I need to put on the record about that. Go ahead, next question.
I want to back up a little bit. When you first observed this car, as you say, you recall that it was blowing its horn.
Yep, the horn was beeping.
Do you recall if you saw who was operating that vehicle?
Unfortunately, sir, I can't recall.
Do you recall if you might have seen multiple people in the vehicle at that time? Or?
You know, unfortunately, due to the time passing, I cannot recall.
That's fair. It has been a while. Do you recall about what time that was that you observed the vehicle?
Again, I can't be sure.
Sorry if I keep asking.
No,
stuff.
I can't be sure. I'm sorry.
At the time that you observed the vehicle, did you see it strike anyone?
I did not, or at least I don't recall. I'm sorry.
And do you recall if the vehicle was speeding at that point that you observed it?
It wasn't speeding, but it was, all I can state is it wasn't speeding.
Did you happen to catch the license plate number of the vehicle at that time?
No, not at all.
Do you recall if the vehicle had any tinted windows?
I couldn't recall, I'm
Any
sorry.
windows rolled down or up at the time you observed it?
No, unfortunately, I don't remember.
Do you recall if the vehicle passed close to where you were walking at the time?
Yeah, it was close enough that it could have easily have clipped me or the two people that were in front of me.
Where you were, the two people that you referred to in front of you, were any of you hurt at that time?
No.
No further questions right now.
Hey, Cross.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Well. Thank you for being here. You testified on direct examination that you don't recall whether or not you saw more than one person in that vehicle we're talking about. Remember saying that?
Yes.
You remember meeting on December 2nd, 2021 for an interview with Detective Jay Carpenter from the Waukesha Police Department?
I remember going. As to a lot of topic of conversations, I unfortunately can't recall those too clearly.
Do you remember telling Detective Carpenter that you only observed a driver in the vehicle?
Objection, leading witness.
Yeah,
Overruled, you may answer.
I can't be too sure.
Overruled, she may answer.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
I can't be too sure. Again, some of the conversations I might have had that day.
Do you remember what this vehicle looked like?
I do not.
Do you remember telling Detective Carpenter that it was a red truck?
I do not.
Okay. Can we please put up for everybody Exhibit 15 again?
Go ahead.
Can we zoom in on the intersection of East and Main?
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Your testimony is that you were standing here on the northeast corner of Buckley and Main Street, is that right?
Correct.
Objection, already answered that, asked and answered.
Overruled, she may answer.
You said correct?
Correct.
And after your children walked by in the parade, you walked in this direction towards the intersection of White Rock and Main, is that correct?
Objection,
Correct.
leading and speculative.
Overruled as to both, you may answer. If there is another objection, just
I'll
wait
pause.
until I rule on it.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, that's okay.
Correct, that was.
And then you crossed through the crosswalk on the north side of Main Street, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that when you saw this vehicle we've been talking about?
Yes.
So you were standing in the crosswalk.
Correct.
Do you remember a police officer being in that intersection?
I can't be too sure.
Okay. Was it clear to you that this was a parade route?
Yes, it was very clear.
Was it clear to you that traffic from White Rock should not have driven onto Main Street
Yes.
unless they were part of the parade?
Yes.
Did it appear to you as though the vehicle we've been talking about was part of the parade?
No.
How many children do you have, Miss Urel?
Objection, irrelevant.
Overruled. You may answer.
4 children.
All 4 of your kids were marching in the parade that day, weren't they?
Yes.
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Sorry.
Your oldest daughter, Charlotte, she was 14 at the time?
Yes.
She was marching with the Extreme Dance Group as an alumni, wasn't she?
She was handing out candy.
Objection.
There was an objection, it's overruled.
I didn't even state why I was objecting, but okay. We still need a 15.
Yes, please. You see on that map the 5 points intersection?
Yes.
When you were standing in the crosswalk at White Rock in Maine, could you see the 5 points intersection?
I could not.
You didn't see your kids get hit, did you?
I did
Objection, leading.
not. Sorry.
Overruled.
Again, sorry.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
You didn't.
I did not.
Did you see them later that night?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
I was only able to see 2 of my children that night.
When did you see the other 2?
Days later, when I was able to leave Children's Hospital.
As their mother, you were directly involved in their medical care and the decisions that were made in that process in the days after the parade?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, their father and I.
Charlotte suffered a chipped vertebrae from being struck, didn't she?
She did.
Objection,
Sorry.
leading.
Again.
Overruled. You may answer.
She did.
Your daughter Alice, she was 10 at the time, wasn't she?
She was.
She suffered chipped front teeth, is that correct?
Yes.
And facial scarring
Yes.
and road rash
Yes.
and a broken fibula and tibia
Yes.
and broken metatarsal bones.
Yes.
She was observed in a concussion protocol, is that correct?
She was.
Your daughter Vivian, she was marching with the Extreme Dance Group too, wasn't she?
Yes, she was.
How old was she in November of 21?
She just turned 7.
Vivian suffered a severe concussion, didn't she?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
And road rash
Extreme road rash.
and a lung contusion
Yes.
and facial scarring.
Yes.
And your 7-year-old daughter Vivian suffered a broken tailbone, didn't she?
She did.
Your son Grayson, he was 8 on November 21st, 2021, is that correct?
That is
Objection,
correct.
leading.
Overruled.
He was walking with the Extreme Dance Group handing out candy, is that right?
He was.
He went to the hospital after the parade, didn't he?
Yes.
He suffered a compound fracture in his femur, is that correct?
An open compound fracture.
Meaning the bone came through the skin?
Yes.
Objection, hearsay. I don't believe he's a doctor.
Overruled. The witness may answer based upon personal knowledge.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
A police officer saved Grayson's life by placing a tourniquet on that open leg wound, is that correct?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions.
Will you read the record?
No redirect.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You may call your next witness, please.
So we gonna take down these exhibitors, you gonna stay up
Oh,
on there?
thank you. We'll take it down. Please call your next witness.
Just 1 second. So you one more person here, right?
It's my understanding, sir. Would that be correct, Attorney
Yes.
Upper?
Yes, she's in the courtroom, ready to go, Your Honor.
Defense calls Catrice. I don't know how to say the last name.
Can you give me the spelling that you have?
Babiasz.
I think it's Babias. What's your last name?
Babias.
Babias. All right. Thank you. You are at the witness stand. Would you please raise your right hand? My clerk, Teresa, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Please have a seat. First thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record, and then spell each.
Catrice Babias, Katrice Babiazz.
Thank you. My apologies for mispronouncing that earlier. Go ahead, your witness.
Good afternoon, Miss Babias.
Correct.
I'm surprised I got it right. What do you do for a living?
I am a law enforcement dispatch supervisor.
And how long have you been doing that now?
I've been in law enforcement for 16 years.
The evening of November 21st, 2021, were you on duty that evening?
I was not.
What were you doing that evening?
I was attending the Waukesha Christmas parade with my family.
And do you recall what time you arrived there with your family that evening?
I arrived to the parade shortly after it started, so it was right after 4 p.m.
And do you recall where you were positioned at with your family when you arrived at the parade that evening?
Yes.
And where were you positioned at?
I was towards the beginning of the parade. I was on Main Street where it connects with White Rock Avenue.
Did anything catch your eye that evening when you were positioned watching the parade with your family?
Yes,
What did you see?
I saw a red SUV coming from White Rock Avenue. The vehicle caught my attention because people started yelling, and the driver was honking the horn.
And do you recall, to the best of your knowledge, it's been a little bit, the driver of the vehicle you observed was honking his horn? Was it gesturing to people?
Yes.
And what do you see? What did you see the gesturing as?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
What was the gesturing?
What was the driver gesturing?
Yes. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So he was taking his hand and going like this, really rapidly, aggressively.
So, for the record, the witness had her right hand up above, probably above her, I wouldn't say at a 90-degree angle, but somewhere maybe at a 45-degree angle with her hand, waving back and forth multiple times in a rapid motion. Go ahead.
You yourself being in law enforcement and just based on what you were observing, the driver of the vehicle you observed was honking his horn and gesturing with this motion. Would you take that motion as trying to alert people to move out of the way? Grounds.
Sustained is to the form of the question. Please rephrase.
How did you yourself take that gesturing?
I took that gesturing as the driver was telling people to get out of his way.
Let me back up. Did the vehicle pass pretty close to where you were positioned?
Yes, the vehicle almost struck my daughter.
Do you recall seeing the driver?
I looked the driver right in the eyes.
And how did the driver look?
The driver looked like through me.
What do you mean through you? Describe what you mean by through you.
I feel that it is very hard to explain that look, but it was very frightening.
Do you recall what the driver was wearing?
The driver had a hoodie sweatshirt or sweatshirt on, and something on his head. I wasn't sure if it was the hood of the sweater or maybe a beanie hat. It was winter. I'm not 100% sure.
Were you able to see any hair?
I did see hair, yes.
How would you describe the hair?
The hair on the head was in front, like dreads down here from what I could see underneath the hood or the hat. And then there was facial hair, beard and mustache.
Did the vehicle...
Hold on, I just need to make a record of, she was also using her hands, that's okay, to indicate at the neck, like under the chin, neck area, with her hands coming down a few inches to indicate what she was describing as hair being seen from the driver. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
When you observed the vehicle approaching, was the vehicle speeding?
When the vehicle was approaching from White Rock, the vehicle was not speeding at that time.
To the best of your knowledge, do you recall there being any barriers present where you were positioned at?
Yes.
Do you recall if the vehicle you observed had any tinted windows?
I do not recall.
Were you able to make out a license plate number of the vehicle, being that it had passed so closely by you?
No, once the vehicle continued past my position, I was more concerned about my children that were with me.
I'm assuming at some point you spoke with the law enforcement about what you saw that evening. Would that be fair to say?
Yes,
And do you recall what agency that was?
I do.
And what agency was that?
The FBI.
At what point were you not able to see the SUV once it passed you?
I lost sight of the SUV once it went into a bunch of people.
Do you recall what date it was that you spoke with the FBI agents on? Was that the same evening or a few days after?
It was not the same evening of the parade, but it was that week. It was within the next few days.
The day you spoke with FBI agents, do you recall stating the driver was wearing a red top that appeared to be made out of a sweatshirt-like material?
I don't recall exactly what was said to the agent, but I do remember the sweatshirt, yes.
A red sweatshirt?
It's possible.
Just a little bit ago, you said that, well, when asked the question of did you recall hair for the driver, you stated and made the gesture that the hair was in front. Do you recall saying that?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall when speaking with FBI agents stating that the hair was pulled back?
The hair appeared to be like possibly in a ponytail, but it was so full that it was coming forward.
Do you recall Well, let me back up. Did you leave the parade at that point?
At what point?
After seeing the vehicle?
Yes.
Were you injured the evening of the incident?
Yes.
You were injured?
Yes, I was.
Any reason why that's not reported?
Probably because I didn't tell anyone else.
If you were injured, why not tell anyone?
Because I haven't wanted to talk about the traumatic experience that I went through for still reliving the weeks and days after the incident.
It doesn't make any sense. You talked to FBI agents a few days where you said you didn't, to be fair, you said you didn't know. You said it was that week is what you said. The same week. You spoke with FBI agents, reported no injuries.
They didn't ask me about injuries.
Well, would it be fair to say that kind of information would come up when talking to law enforcement, seeing as how you yourself work in law enforcement? It just seems odd, don't you think?
I do not. I was not physically injured.
Oh. But you didn't report this at any time whatsoever.
That's the answer to the question.
Grounds.
Sustained. Already answered.
So did you speak to anyone about this in law enforcement?
Objection made.
Grounds.
Overruled. She may answer. He clarified law enforcement. Did she speak to anyone about this in law enforcement? I interpreted this as the injury.
Right.
So go ahead.
I feel like, no, I did not.
Did you file any claims related to the incident?
No, I did not.
So is today your first time bringing up your alleged injury?
No, it is not.
At some point, you were subpoenaed by the district attorney's office to testify here to testify in this trial. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Do you recall when you received that subpoena?
From the district attorney's office, it was in July.
And do you recall whom you spoke with about the information regarding the subpoena?
I contacted the victim witness advocate, Carrie Patterson.
You contacted the Ms. Peterson after receiving the subpoena?
Correct. The instructions told me to.
Okay. You ever spoke with anyone directly at the district attorney's office?
No. Correction. Yes, when I walked in today, I met there and let them know I was here, and then they walked me into a room, and I waited until I was called by you.
So before today, you had no interactions with anyone related to the district attorney's office besides the, I think you said, victim advocate?
So the victim advocates who have been in connection with and letting me know when to come and all of that.
Of the three district attorneys seated to my left at this table, had you had any interactions of any kind with any of those three district attorneys?
I have not.
And I believe, just for the record, when you asked that, Attorney Basie was just pointing to herself and the two people next to her, so it's clear, because since there's two tables.
What would be the reason for that?
Since there's two tables of individuals, I think she wanted to make the witness aware. And I just wanted to point it out for the record since it happened.
Working in law enforcement for 16 years, I'm sure this isn't your first time being involved in a trial. Would that be fair to say?
I have not been in a trial for law enforcement. No, I have not.
You've never witnessed a trial, sat at a trial, been in a trial?
I have not.
Have you ever testified in any way before today?
Objection, all this.
Rounds.
Overruled, you may answer.
I have testified before, yes.
So it would be fair to say that you would have knowledge of where an alleged defendant and the district attorney would sit in the courtroom, correct?
I know where they're sitting, yes.
I want to back up a little bit to the observation of the vehicle the evening of November 21st, 2021. While you observed the vehicle approaching your position, did you see it strike anyone?
I did not see the vehicle strike anyone, no.
From your opinion, observing the vehicle approaching your position, did it appear that the vehicle attempted to strike anyone?
Yes,
And why would you come to that conclusion?
because I saw an officer have to jump out of the way in order for
When
the,
it was approaching
When it was
Question
a,
was when it was approaching.
I'm confused.
Hold on, everyone. The question was asked, this witness is going to be allowed to answer the question fully without interruption. Go ahead and answer the question.
Thank you. I misunderstood his question, I guess.
Answer the question
okay.
that as you understood it.
Yep. So I saw that an officer had to get out of the way, and he was attempting to stop Mr. Brooks from driving through the parade, and he was at the last minute jumped out of the way from the vehicle. Otherwise, he would have been struck.
You just used the name Mr. Brooks for the first time that you've been testifying. Would that be fair to say?
I don't understand your question.
You just used the name Mr. Brooks for the first time since you've been testifying. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
Why haven't you used that name before? You've been up there for quite some time.
I didn't need to.
So what changed for the last question that you needed to?
I don't understand your question.
You just stated that you didn't mention the name before because you didn't need to. So what about the last question that you answered made you feel like you needed to use the name for that question and no question before that?
I don't know.
Out of curiosity, how did you come to the knowledge of that name?
It was on the subpoena I received last week.
You just stated a little bit earlier in testimony that you received your subpoena in July. Now you said last week.
Those are both correct.
So you received two separate subpoenas?
Correct.
What was the difference between the two?
One was from the district attorney's office and one was from you.
So the one that you received from the district attorney's office in July didn't have a case caption on it?
Okay, what's a case caption?
Just 1 second. 1 second, Your Honor, if
Your
I
Honor,
may
I just
have
have
just
that
1
close
second.
line of questioning. I really don't know what the relevance is for the purposes of this trial,
There was no objection at first.
but there is now.
I'm going to sustain the objection under 906-11, because I don't believe it advances.
I think
trial.
I think you know where I was getting at with the question.
Then you need to ask your question directly, sir. Go ahead, but I'm sustaining it as to the form of the question.
When you were subpoenaed in July by the district attorney's office, the subpoena didn't contain information to the case you were being subpoenaed for?
Objection to relevance.
Grounds?
Sustained, you don't have to answer that. I sustained the objection on those grounds. Ask the question I believe that you're trying to ask, not that one.
Was the name that you mentioned, Mr. Brooks, anywhere on the subpoena that you received from the district attorney's office in July?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Oh, sustained,
Grounds for the sustained. That was
not
the-
relevant.
What? Mind-boggling. Sir, in July when you received your subpoena from the district attorney's office, were you even aware what you were being subpoenaed for?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained, not relevant.
She's testifying in the trial and it's not relevant that she got subpoenaed?
Mr. Brooks, she's here under your subpoena.
What?
You called her as a witness. It's
The
your
subpoena the subpoena this is relevant because she
Mr.
was
Brooks,
already
under
subpoenaed.
90611, please ask the witness a
This is
relevant and
mind-boggling.
probative question.
This is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Remind the jury that the statements of the parties or the attorneys are not evidence.
I gotta go be elsewhere. So were you aware that it was a chance you would be possibly testifying in this trial?
Yes.
And did you know who the trial was for?
Objection,
Grounds.
Sustained,
Grounds for the
relevant.
sustained.
it's not relevant.
I've never heard of nobody testifying in a trial that they didn't know who the trial was for.
Mr.
think
Brooks,
that's- I think
I'm
that's very
sustaining the
relevant.
objection under 90611 and I'm asking you to move on.
Y'all, this ridiculous, man. Seems to me like a like a lot of your answers are coached. Is that fair to say?
No.
So the subpoena that you got last week, is that how you learned the name that you used?
Objection,
Grounds.
relevance for the same reason I argued before.
Grounds.
Asked and answered. She's indicated the answer already. 90611, sir. Next question.
The question
Different
was,
topic.
is that the first time that she saw the name?
It's not relevant.
That
Next
was not
question.
asked and answered. That was not asked nor answered.
Under 90611, please ask a question, sir.
Man, what is y'all people trying to pull, man? This is ridiculous.
Mr. Brooks, if you don't ask another question that's relevant and probative under 90611, then I will turn the witness over to the state for their cross-examination.
And then I should be able to get redirect, right? Your Honor?
Ask a question, or I will declare the examination by you to be ended.
It's not an examination, it's direct.
It's a direct examination, sir. Under 90611, you are directed to ask a question, or I will
I
ask the state if they have any
Your Honor.
questions.
I heard you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Know who the plaintiff is in this matter?
Yes.
Who's the plaintiff?
The state of Wisconsin.
Is that an entity or a living human being?
Objection.
Grounds.
relevance.
Not relevant, sustained. Next question.
Have you ever had any interaction with the plaintiff?
Objection, vague.
Sustained.
Vague.
As to the form of the
Have
question,
you ever had any interaction with the state of Wisconsin?
do not answer that question. Next question, sir. Under 90611.
Was there an objection or was that just a ruling? I'm not sure. You're both was talking at the same time.
Under 90611, I directed the witness not to answer that irrelevant question. Ask your next question, sir. Mr. Brooks, ask your next question.
I'm gonna get to it.
Thank you.
So when did you first report your alleged injury?
You do not have to answer that question. Next question, sir.
Grounds for
906.11, sub 1, sub A, sub B, and sub C.
is that lawful law?
All right, you may sit down. Does the state have any questions for this witness?
Ma'am, that day on November 21st of last year, you were there with 2 kids?
I was, yes.
What were their ages on that date?
Objection.
3
relevancy.
and
Overrule, the witness may answer.
Of course it's gonna be overruled.
3 and 6.
And I don't know, Mr. Brooks can sit down. I'm kind of asking the questions right now.
Mr. Brooks, please sit down. Mr. Brooks, you're not asking the questions.
I'm not saying
I would
anything.
ask you to sit down, please. It is disrespectful to this witness and to the state and to the court.
No, it's not. Not doing anything wrong. I'm merely standing here.
Yeah, when you were at the parade on November 21st of last year, approximately where were you watching the parade from?
Asked and answered objection.
Mr. Brooks, it's cross-examination. Just because you asked the question initially and she answered it does not mean the state doesn't get to follow up on it.
So the state can ask the same question I
The
asked.
state can ask their questions.
So how
Go
come when
ahead.
I did that,
Overrule,
it was
the witness may
it was
answer.
sustained?
I was on Main Street, but right by where the intersection of White Rock, and I was in the roadway.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked and previously admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 15.
Go ahead.
And I'd ask that the screen be cleared. And ma'am, does this
Should we
show?
wait till it's in the jury
I'm
box?
sorry.
I'm sorry. The jury would let me know when it's there. Thank you, it's there now. Go ahead.
Ma'am, do you see a purple line on that would indicate the parade route going from White Rock Avenue down Main Street?
Yes, I do.
And can you approximate where you and your kids were watching the parade?
Yes. Do you want?
I'm sorry, it's a touch screen. I keep forgetting to say that. Touch screens, just put a dot right where it is. Okay.
Maybe on the other side of that red line?
So, okay, can we clear the screen and maybe just put a dot? I think that, or a circle. I think a circle would be good. Okay, thank you. Would be fair to say is to your left would have been Pleasant Street?
That is correct.
Were there barricades blocking Pleasant Street?
There were
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overrule, the witness may answer.
There were barricades that were partially black. They were on Main Street, but partially blocking Pleasant Street as well.
Could a car have gone down Pleasant Street?
Yes.
Objection.
Okay.
Overrule, the
Hearsay.
witness may answer. It's not hearsay.
So when the red
Yeah,
SUV
hearsay.
came down White Rock Avenue and was making its turn onto East Main Street, as you've testified, it could have just gone straight onto Pleasant Street, correct?
That is
Objection.
correct.
That's hearsay. She's speaking as a
Hold
first
on.
eyewitness,
There's an
first-hand
objection.
eyewitness.
Mr. Brooks, your objection is noted. It's overruled. The witness
As
may
usual.
answer.
It's always overruled.
Go ahead, you may answer, ma'am.
Sorry, there's a lot of talking. Your question was, just to clarify, could the vehicle have gone straight onto Pleasant Street? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you. And where you stated that you and your kids were partially in the roadway when the red SUV came through?
Yes, we were.
Objection. That's mischaracterization of what was testified to.
Overruled, the witness may answer. Go ahead.
Give me an answer.
Can you repeat it?
Sure. Were you and your kids all in the roadway when the red SUV went through?
Yes, we were.
Okay. You weren't part of the parade, correct?
We were not.
Okay. So were you standing with other people that were in the roadway?
Yes, we were.
And was one of your kids going to get candy when the red SUV came through?
Yes, my
Objection.
daughter.
Speaking as a first-hand eyewitness.
Because she is a first-hand eyewitness.
No, I'm talking about you.
The objection is noted, it's overruled, the question is proper, and the witness may answer.
Yes, my daughter was further in the roadway. We were all in the road, but she was further in the roadway, reaching to grab candy.
At any other time, you stated that this was towards the end of the parade, is that correct?
Yeah, we saw Santa, and he's always like the end of the parade.
And had your daughter gone to get candy at other times?
The entire time.
Had she, during the time preceding the red SUV coming through, had she almost been struck by any other participants in the parade?
No, she was nowhere near like where the vehicles were driving through the parade. She was, no.
So she's going out to get some candy that had been thrown, I assume, correct?
Yes.
And
Overruled, the witness's answer may stand.
you see this red SUV coming. Is it coming from your right or from your left?
The red SUV was coming from my right side, which was White Rock.
Okay. And how close did it come to your daughter?
It was, I wouldn't be able to give an accurate judgment, but it felt very, very close.
Had you not pulled your daughter away, would that car have hit your daughter?
Objection is speculative.
Overruled.
It's very possible.
So you say that you saw a police officer have some contact with the red SUV. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Can you describe that for the jury?
Well, there was a few times that police officers attempted to stop the red SUV. The first one would have been where we were on Main and White Rock. And then there were also other people trying to stop it too. And then again, as it drove, once it turned onto Main, the next road, I believe is Buckley. And there was another officer who tried to stop that red SUV again.
And which is the officer who had to step out of the way in order to not get hit by the red SUV?
What was the question?
Where was the officer located who had to step out of the way to avoid being struck by the red SUV?
I believe that was the officer around Buckley and Maine.
Okay. And ma'am, as the car passed your location, did it increase its speed?
Yes.
Do you know where in the roadway it traveled down?
Objection. Speculation.
Overruled, the witness may answer.
The direction of travel?
Where in the road? Was it on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, or in the middle?
It was all over the road.
You saw it all over the road?
Yes.
So going, and why don't you
Dri-
describe for the jury what you saw?
Driving the vehicle, once it turned onto Main, it drove side to side, and then I lost sight when there were through the people as it got down the hill.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Can you read your register?
Yep. You said you observed multiple officers try to stop the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
You described one at, I think you said it was Buckley, right?
Yes.
Why didn't you report the other officers that you allegedly saw attempt to stop the vehicle?
I don't know what you're asking.
The report that the interview that was conducted with the FBI. That was who did your interview, correct?
Yes.
Why is it not in the report about the multiple officers that you say you saw attempted to stop the vehicle?
I don't know why that wasn't put in the report.
Do you recall if you told the FBI agents?
It's been a year. I believe so, but it's been a year.
When you say it's been a year, I'm assuming that means that there's some details you don't quite recall all the way. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So it would be fair to say that if there's details you don't recall, how can you recall the path of travel of the SUV that you claim you saw?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm not understanding.
I think it was clear, but I'll ask again. You just acknowledged that there may be some details that you don't quite recall. So would it be fair to say that you don't quite recall the path of travel of the vehicle?
No, that is not correct.
Judging by what you just stated, wouldn't it be fair to say that that's a possibility?
No.
So you recall all the details of what you observed that evening, November 21st, 2021?
No.
So what other details do you not recall?
Objection. You're under, how does someone recall the details that they don't recall?
Yeah, that's what I wonder.
Sustained is to the form of the question.
Seems very funny. Seems almost as if you're recalling what you want to recall and purposely not recalling.
Objection.
Don't.
Badgering the witness.
Yes, sustained. You do not have to answer that, and you are warned. You may not badger or argue with this witness. Next question.
Badger or argue? What do you mean?
Next question.
What do you mean?
Don't intimidate the witness is what I mean.
How am I intimidating the witness?
Badgering the witness by eye rolling, by pursing your lips, by making facial movements regarding her
Does she
answers
feel intimidated?
is badgering the witness.
Are you kidding me?
Under 90611,
You really
please
can't-
ask
you really
your
can't
next
be serious.
question.
You can't be serious right now. Intimidating the witness. What have I done to intimidate the witness?
The last question was badgering, which is a form.
But you said
Mr. Brooks, I made my ruling under 90611.
You specifically
Please
said
ask a
intimidate.
question or
I'm trying
I
to
will
merely-
stop the
How did
questioning.
I intimidate?
Under 90611, sub 1, sub A, sub B, and sub C, ask your next question or the questioning of this
How are
witness
you
will
even a
end.
judge? How are you even a judge?
All right, you may step down, ma'am. Thank you.
How are you even a judge? Come on, man. This must be all about the 62Q trust, right? That you want to be the beneficiary of?
I'm going to give the jury their closing instruction. We are done with testimony for today. Please do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all the evidence is presented and I have instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else until your final deliberations in the jury room. This order is not limited to face-to-face conversations. It also extends to all forms of electronic communications. Do not use any electronic devices such as a mobile phone or computer, text or instant messaging or social networking sites to send or receive any information about this case or your experience as a juror. If you come in contact with the parties, lawyers, interpreters, or witnesses, do not speak with them. For their part, the parties, lawyers, interpreters, and witnesses will not contact or speak with the jurors. Do not listen to any conversation about this case. Do not research any information that you personally think might be helpful to you in understanding the issues presented. Do not investigate this case on your own or visit the scene either in person or by any electronic means. Do not read any newspaper reports or listen to any news reports on radio, television, over the internet, or any other electronic application or tool about this trial. Do not consult dictionaries, computers, electronic applications, social media, the internet, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party or witness in this case. Any information you obtain outside the courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. Relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you are serving on this jury. Do not use a computer, cell phone, or other electronic device, including personal wearable electronics applications or tools with communication capabilities, to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by telephone, blog post, email, text message, instant message, social media post, or in any other way on or off the computer. Do not permit anyone to communicate with you about this matter, either in person, electronically, or by any other means. If anyone does so, despite you telling them not to, you should report that to me. I appreciate that it is tempting when you go home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you may not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decision in this case. After this trial is completed, you are free to communicate with anyone in any manner. These rules are intended to assure that jurors remain impartial throughout the trial. If any juror has reason to believe that another juror has violated these rules, you should report that to me. If jurors do not comply with these rules, it could result in a new trial involving additional time and significant expense to the parties and the taxpayers. You are to decide the case solely on the evidence offered and received at trial. I'll have the jurors report on Monday at 9 a.m. Thank you. You are excused. Please rise for the jury.
Ain't even gonna call yourself a judge as much as bias you put up in here. Don't even tell the jury the truth. Got no integrity whatsoever. None. None.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. I would like an update on whether Mr. Brooks filled out a subpoena for Dawn Woods and provided that to the state. Has that been done?
No, we haven't received anything, Your Honor, and obviously she can appear here voluntarily if Mr. Brooks wants to arrange that. I don't believe a subpoena is necessary. We had subpoenaed her, and she was under a state subpoena. So I know that at least some point she had notice, but our position would be, Your Honor, that we will not be responsible in any fashion for producing Miss Woods. Mr. Brooks talks to her on a daily basis. If he wants her here, he can produce her on Monday.
Yeah, they ain't gotta worry about that.
So I just wanted to know, because I know a subpoena form was filled out.
If
So
I want her to be here, she gonna be here.
I agree with
So
the
just
state that
know that.
she could certainly appear.
It ain't even gotta be no arrangement. All I gotta say is come. She gonna come. That simple.
Mr. Brooks, do you intend to call her as a witness? Because I'm directing you
We
to
said-
have her
we
here
said
at
all
9
that-
a.m.
We said all that at the beginning, man. Like, I don't even want to be in here that much longer. Just do what you got to do so I can get up out of here. I'm tired of being in the courtroom that has no integrity whatsoever. How can you even call yourself a
Mr.
judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record of some
I need to make a record too.
You don't
When
need
am
to-
I going to get the chance to do that?
All right, I need to make a record. He's being removed to the other courtroom. He is yelling at me. He's not going to let me make a statement or make the record that I need to make.
I'm finna
He
leave
hasn't
anyway,
sat
so what
down
do it matter?
for
You
the
can
better
hold me
part
in
of 2
contempt all
hours.
you want. You can hold me in contempt all you want.
I'm not
All
holding you
gotta
in
do is tell me
contempt.
if it's criminal or civil, so I can hit
All
you
right,
with you.
I need to
with
clear
you
the
know is
courtroom because
coming.
I do need
I'm
to
gonna
make-
give you what you know is coming.
I need him to go to the
If
other
it's civil-
courtroom because I do need to put some
if
things
it's
on the
civil,
record. The record should
Where's the
reflect
contract between you and
that
I?
Mr. Brooks
If it's
is
criminal,
yelling at me.
what is the crime?
He is.
Who makes the claim? And what
He
is
is.
the...
I will make the record when we get back. I will step off, but Mr. Brooks, you're being
It ain't
taken
no
to
Mr.
the
It
next
ain't no Mr.
courtroom.
Brooks. Don't try to address me
Thank
like
you.
that, like we cool. You don't have no integrity. How can you even call yourself a judge? Making tacit agreements, being biased, judicial misconduct, trying to steal somebody's system. I know I'm muted, so.
Not yet, okay. Okay, that's fine. Just need to know. Can they confirm that
Am I
the
muted?
audio and visual is working? We don't need a clerk per se. It's
Just let them know we can hear. It is.
Am I muted?
Record to reflect that Mr. Brooks is in the adjacent courtroom. I have verified the audio and video are working appropriately. I need to address some scheduling issues, but before I do that, I need to make a record that at the very end of, after I read the closing instructions, Mr. Brooks started to make disparaging remarks about the court in the presence of the jury. I did not respond to those, and once that jury left, he got incredibly loud. He was yelling at me. He, I think, had been standing for the better part of the last couple of hours, even though at one point I directed him to sit down after the direct examination of the last witness. It was apparent to me that he was not pleased with some of the rulings that I had been making regarding objections. I would just remind him that this was a witness he called, therefore it's proper and allowable under the law, under 906.11, sub 3 to be exact, for the state to ask leading questions, which they did. And at the very end of that, there was an objection based on badgering, which, as the record reflects, I sustained. His voice got louder. He continued to stand. He was being very argumentative with that witness, who, again, he called. Given his posture, given his staring, given his pursing of his lips, given the way that he kept asking the same question in different ways, but over and over, not satisfied with the responses that had been given or the court sustaining the objections, that is why I made a finding at that time and sustained the objection for badgering. It was Mr. Brooks who asked me what that meant, and I indicated it's a form of intimidating a witness. I don't mean that in the sense of there's a charge of intimidating a witness. That's not certainly what I meant, but really in the common everyday usage, it's another word, it's a synonym for badgering. Clearly he was displeased with the court. After that, I cut off the examination, which I had given a number of warnings that I would do if he didn't ask an appropriate, a probative, or relevant question. During that time of both the, frankly, even during his direct examination, definitely during the state's cross-examination, and then redirect, it was very apparent to this court, and I think to anyone who was watching, that Mr. Brooks was not pleased with the witness's answers and would roll his eyes at her, or just to himself, I guess, and purse his lips and make other gestures that it was apparent to this court he did not like her testimony. And again, I'd remind everyone that it was his witness. And he had the police reports for this witness, and obviously was fully aware of her statements to the investigators in this case. So I just wanted to make a record of that. It's in part why at the very end, and given the history of today and his conduct and being removed previously, I thought it important that the court remove him at the end of the hearing outside the presence of the jury so that I could get through a couple of things. We have gotten through the witnesses for which Mr. Brooks issued subpoenas that the state assisted with. I did provide permission to him earlier today, if he so chooses, to call Dawn Woods as a witness. The only other witness at this point that I can identify that's been, for which the court and the state has been put on notice, of course, would be Mr. Brooks himself. I'm not looking for an answer today, but what I wanted to put on the record and what I will put on the record are certain advisements that he can certainly contemplate over the weekend so that when I do the colloquy with him on Monday morning, he's had a sufficient opportunity to think about his decision to testify or not to testify. The advisements that I will give Mr. Brooks at the moment are as follows. Mr. Brooks has a constitutional right to testify. If he chooses to testify, I'm further advising him that the state has the right to ask questions of him, what is referred to as cross-examination. That may include reference to whether he's been convicted of crimes in the past. I still need to make a ruling on that, and I will do that first thing Monday morning. I will also advise him that he has a constitutional right not to testify, and that a decision not to testify, that a jury will be so instructed, they will be instructed that that cannot be used against him in any way, and there's an appropriate jury instruction on that. If he chooses to testify, the other jury instruction that is typically read simply advises the jury to assess credibility no differently than how they would assess the credibility of any other witness. There's the added paragraph to jury instruction 300. I would further advise him that it is his decision and his decision alone on whether to testify. I will ask him whether anyone has made any threats to influence his decision on whether or not to testify. I will ask him whether anyone has made any promises to him to influence his decision to testify. I will rely upon upon the record, specifically the record made during the waiver of attorney regarding his education. I will ask him whether he's had any medication, alcohol, or drugs within the last 24 hours prior to the colloquy. And I may also confirm that he's able to read, write English. Again, I may also refer back to the colloquy I had during the waiver of attorney hearings. I will then ask him whether he's made a decision, and then ask what that decision is, and then based upon his decision, I of course will make an appropriate finding. Given how this trial has progressed and the disruptions and some of the issues with, consent or lack of consent, or that Mr. Brooks sometimes raises, I'm also going to advise him today that failure to answer the question on what is your decision, a failure to answer, this court will interpret as a no, meaning he will be choosing not to testify, and the jury will be so instructed. And I may ask that question more than once, depending on the circumstances. I'm also going to direct the parties to some cases that I think may become relevant about potential testimony. the scope of it, Chambers versus Mississippi. It's a U.S. Supreme Court case from 1973, found at 410 U.S. 284. Rock versus Arkansas, also a U.S. Supreme Court case, 483 U.S. 44. State versus Anthony, which is a Wisconsin case, 2015 Wisconsin 20. These cases, of course, recognize that a defendant in a criminal case has a fundamental constitutional right to testify in his or her own defense. Of course, that right stems from various constitutional provisions, including the 14th Amendment, which protects a defendant's due process rights to be heard and offer testimony, the 6th Amendment, which protects a defendant's right to call witnesses in their favor, and the 5th Amendment, which protects a defendant's right against compelled testimony unless he chooses to speak on his or her own behalf. I'd also point the parties to State versus McDowell, 2004 Wisconsin 70. Although the right to testify is a fundamental constitutional right grounded in personal autonomy, it is not absolute. There is no constitutional right to present irrelevant evidence. State versus Robinson, 146 Wisconsin 2nd 315. Moreover, a criminal defendant's right to present relevant testimony is subject to reasonable restrictions. Citing to Rock versus Arkansas, there's a balancing test that if and when this court is faced with any of these situations that I will be prepared to go through. Of course, Illinois versus Allen is also important, and all of the other cases that I've cited along the way. State versus Anthony is also important, as I've noted previously. I've relied heavily, of course, during the course of this trial on 906.11, and the primary purpose of a criminal trial is to develop relevant facts on which a determination of guilt or innocence can be made. Efficiency is a secondary objective of trial, and of course, it is the circuit courts and the judges assigned to those circuit courts that are charged with administering the trial and serving these two purposes. So, just tying up, I guess, the last loose end. I've referenced it already, but I think it's worth repeating again. If the defendant wishes to call Ms. Dawn Woods to the stand, I expect her to be here. I expect one of two things to happen. Either he testifies first or he doesn't, or he calls. He can certainly call her after he testifies, but if she is not here at 9 o'clock, when I've advised the jury to be here, I will, of course, have gone through the colloquy with Mr. Brooks, and I expect people to be on time and to be ready to go, to be fully prepared. And then, of course, the state, if it so chooses, does have the option to call rebuttal witnesses and offer rebuttal testimony.
We would not anticipate that as of right now, Your Honor, just so you know for timing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because once the evidentiary phase of the trial is closed, of course, I will be sending the jury home because I do anticipate a very lengthy jury instruction conference. And it's my hope that that is something we can get done by the end of the day on Monday, but since it's just the parties and not a jury here, I will go as late as it takes. Sure. With the hope of and with the plan of, again, assuming the state doesn't call any rebuttal witnesses, to start instructing the jury on Tuesday morning. I anticipate that is going to be an incredibly lengthy process. We have been working, Madam Clerk has been working very hard on pulling together, just from what we have thus far, the jury instructions. I believe it's well over 100 pages. Yes, with my advanced eyes, I need 14-point font, so with that caveat, but the preliminary instructions were 69 pages with the 14-point font. So I know it's going to take some time. I know I'm going to need some breaks. I do not anticipate getting done so I keep saying preliminary, but I don't anticipate getting done with the advisement of the jury instructions before the lunch hour. I can't tell you how long it's going to take. It may take the whole day, but the party should, the state would go first, so the state should be prepared perhaps to start closing arguments. I'll ask you at a later point, probably sometime on Monday, if you have an idea of how long that will be, because that will frankly dictate in part like where we are with how long it takes for me to go through the instructions and whether I just instruct and then bring the jury back the next day for closing arguments. But that's generally the framework that I intend to follow. Any questions about any of that from the state?
Nothing about any of that, Your Honor.
Anything you think I need to address before I turn to Mr. Brooks?
We do have two things to clear a record about.
Go ahead.
Do that now.
Yep.
The first is for the testimony of two different witnesses. We provided Mr. Brooks with summaries of those witnesses' statements as recorded in the police reports. First was Deanna Aldrich. That included a piece of paper containing 3 paragraphs which summarized Ms. Aldrich's statement to the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department as they were memorialized in supplement number 55 under an incident report number of W21087731. The second of those was a 1-paragraph summary of the statement provided by Jason Hayes to the City of Waukesha Police Department, memorialized in supplement number 28 under incident report number 21047493. These were, again, documents that were provided to Mr. Brooks in the discovery process, but we sought to be helpful in his presentation of evidence here at the trial today. The second issue that we'd like to make a record about relates to the testimony of Erica Patterson. So for the record, I think it's important to note that the 2 photographs the defendant attempted to show that witness and presumably put into evidence depicted what I believe to be the defendant and Ms. Patterson's 15-year-old daughter, as well as their new grandchild, the daughter's child, who was born around May 1st of 2022. I think that there was ample grounds for the court to end Ms. Patterson's testimony when it did, but for just in case that becomes an issue going forward, I'll make an offer of proof that Ms. Patterson, if asked about those pictures, would have testified that she did not provide them to Mr. Brooks. She provided them to a person named Michelle, who I believe is a mutual friend, who in turn provided them to Dawn Woods, the defendant's mother, long day, who then, that was the person who provided them to Mr. Brooks. If she were forced to answer questions about this supposed letter that Mr. Brooks was claiming to exist, she would have testified that she has not written a letter to Mr. Brooks since he came into our jail on November 22nd. She never went on November 21st either. At any point between his being taken into custody and today. It's my understanding that he has tried to call her from the Waukesha County Jail on 37 occasions. She has never accepted a single one of those phone calls. And finally, during the early lunch break, I was informed by the bailiff staff that the defendant was twice offered to go to his cell to retrieve that letter that he talked about. He declined both times.
Thank you. I appreciate the record being made. I will now unmute Mr. Brooks and ask him if there's anything he needs to make a record of at this point on the topics that have been raised. Sir, anything you wish to address before we break for the day?
Yeah, I can. I wasn't really hearing everything that was just said good, but why haven't I been given the chance to offer all my filings and the evidence when I already stated that before? I would like all my filings. I would like every single filing that I filed placed into evidence. Every last one of them. That has yet to be done. I've put you on notice and I've stated it on the record. Even before I even had a chance to start calling witnesses and put on a defense that I haven't even been adequately been able to do. So this is something that's been stated on the record numerous times. I did hear a reference to what was he just talking about? Whatever he was just talking about is in regards to me going to get the letter or whatever the case may be. First of all, it's not just one letter. Like I stated before, it's multiple letters. And for somebody that don't even know to try to tell me what I got, like you need to cut it out, man. Y'all need to cut it out. Seriously. Stop it. It seems to me that all y'all been wanting to do is gang up. Be biased, be prejudiced, and gang up. 4 against 1. You sit up there earlier and made a record before the lunch. You sit up there and made a record about all this stuff that happened in Nevada. That's other acts of evidence, ain't it? How was you allowed to put that on record and not even be truthful about everything that you said? But not one time did somebody say, no, we gonna strike that. Not one time. But if it had been me, it would have got struck. Or if it had been me, it would have been a problem. If it had been me, I'd have been held in contempt. Why was the bond not addressed? Why was the statement of particulars not addressed? No filings that I seem to file need to be addressed. After you sat there and told me that that's what I needed to do, then you want to refer to the waiver of counsel, which, again, for the record, you accepted it the way that I gave it to you, which clearly states on there, I do not waive my right to assistance of counsel, and you accepted that. But you still turn around and continue to violate my Sixth Amendment right. You violate my First Amendment right by telling me what I can and can't say, which I have the right to say whatever I want to say and to be heard. That's the First Amendment. You sit up here and talking about a fourth option that you came with out of the blue for Illinois versus Allen when there is no fourth option. Then you try to sneak some other case laws in that you just came up with today. I don't know if you came up with that when you was on one of your breaks that you take, but that it's awful funny that it never got mentioned before. You've repeatedly made a false record. You want to sit up here and perpetuate all this disruptive behavior and this, that, and the third, when you knew from the point of the start of this trial, 1, that I wasn't prepared, 2, that I did not understand the proceedings. but yet still you choose to find a way to get around it. Just like you found a way to get around answering what your name was, which you're a public servant, the name that you have on file with the Secretary of Treasury and State, however you want to put it. You were asked for a certified copy of your oath of office, which you stated on the record you would not provide. Didn't give any case law why you don't have to provide that. Have yet to prove subject matter jurisdiction for the record. Have yet to show that you even have a license to practice law. Haven't proven that yet. And neither has the prosecution. Where's the licenses? Why can't I place your oath of office into the record? Why can't I make that part of evidence? The oath that you haven't even honored, not one bit. Doing enough to keep your face clean doesn't constitute being fair. Doesn't constitute being impartial. When the jury was selected, I struck the whole jury. That never got addressed in any way, shape, or form. When you knew, when you were informed way before that I was striking the whole jury. So how can you go over that constitutional right, which I have the right to not pass a jury?
Mr. Brooks, I'm muting you. And the reason I'm muting him is because he has not addressed a single issue that was raised at the end of this hearing today. He is simply rehashing previous determinations of this court. I would describe it as a rant. He continues to impugn the integrity of this court and this process. Again, he did not address any of the issues that I raised at the end of this hearing. From my perspective, the issues that he is raising are all related to claims that a sovereign would make, someone who claims to be a sovereign citizen, claims that have no base, that are baseless in law and in fact. I'm not going to address them any further. Again, they are simply baseless. And with that, I'm going to end for the day. I'll see the parties at 8:30 a.m. on Monday. Thank you, everyone. We are in recess.